thank you all. We will get going. Now, we talked, we got item 7 here. We had presentation on tank, but we're going to have tank iwi engagement now, and you were going to take us through this? Okay. Item 7.
Kia ora koutou. First and foremost, I just want to say, if I break out into a coughing fit, it's in line with my, both Tanya and I are doing Iron Māori Quarter this weekend. It's probably my enthusiasm or desperation of swimming at this time. So just be aware of that. So going through the tank iwi engagement plan, this was a request by Tangata Whenua RPC membership 2 meetings ago, and really was just to give an update on the Tangata Whenua during the tank plan change project and processes to date. In reading the paper, you will see that the Tank Collaborative Stakeholder Group was initially formed in 2012. The appointment processes, or at least the invitation to sit on this collaborative stakeholder group occurred. The first meeting was held on Tuesday the 9th of October, and clearly from that it was clear that Tangata Whenua had a place and a voice to participate there, as well as to the statutory requirement. In reading through the minutes, and we have the minutes here and I've gone through them, it was very clear that Mātauranga Māori featured throughout the discussions very early in the piece, and so in essence we see over time the development there. Moving through the group there, and I suppose it's going to paragraph number 9, we recognise that there has been some dissatisfaction expressed about the tank mana whenua representation and also the wider tank group membership. And what we recognise is that while the decisions of the past can't be easily undone, we have taken actions and working in good faith to overcome some of these dissatisfactions, and hence this report. The draft engagement plans listed here, particularly if you move through to 13.1 and 2, you'll see that we started working with Te Manaki Taiao, or the unit of Te Tai Whenua Heretaunga, to develop an engagement plan for tank, and within that kōrero there, the report itself was on the back of their iwi hapu management plan, the mana ake, and working through it. And I suppose over time, where I came in to pick up this role, it was clear that there were still areas that needed to be completed. Also within that time, there was a change in the management structure within the Te Tai Whenua, and that also impacted on the task being incompleted there. However, we continue to work through it, and the group agreed that Mr. Wayne Ormsby was to be contracted to complete the engagement plan at the time. Again, though, we developed that report. I think I even presented it to you here, and it was received positively. When we went back to the mana whenua, Tangata Whenua group there, they did not support it. So again, we were left in a comma to the sentence of where we're going with this engagement plan. A significant meeting was held on the 5th of April 2016, to which James attended and chaired this meeting, and it probably was the opportunity for mana whenua group to explain that they did not see themselves as 100% representative on this mana whenua group. They were concerned with the challenges of the tank terminology, the communication of the tank terminology with whānau, and the other issues relating to the process of communication between whānau and how they were getting this back to their representative body. And also they spoke on the mana whenua having both environmental and commercial issues. To this, we saw the Ngāruroro Values to Attributes report being contracted through Niki in June last year, with Tangata Whenua seeking leave from the business of tank to complete this significant piece of work. A meeting was held in April 2017, to which both council and mana whenua members looked to create a central place for collective discussion with other tangata whenua within this catchment. I've listed there from points 14 right through on page 21 to 22, highlighting those positive aspects that have come forward. Again, when James Palmer came into the organisation and he took the lead within the tank project, the context of inviting the PSGEs, the post-settlement governance entities, to attend the tank meetings, and as you'll see there, 15.1, Mana Ahuriri Trust were invited there, but in line with their letter of the 4th of June 2014, they declined the invitation to be represented on this committee. Mangahariru Tangi Trust were informed and invited, and we are still waiting, even though Shane Walker continues to receive the information. We don't have much feedback to that, and He Tō Takatini have not formally responded. Yes.
Just in terms of MDT, I just checked with our GM on that point, and he Te Kaha Hawaii has been our appointee, and he understood he had formally notified that several times when requested, so
Okay.
I might just want to check there, so
Thank you.
thank you.
And so moving through this, you'll see the communication challenge that Tangata Whenua had brought to our meeting in April 2016. So we developed the think tank publication, and again that was about having a document or a flyer that could go out to the communities, the respective communities there. The Ngāruroro report, and you may recall you had a presentation on this report. I think we were over at the Napier City Council there, working through that, and that clearly showed where the values to attributes within the Ngāruroro and those interested in this significant area, water body, and part of that too, the success of that is that they had held a number of wānanga. The Ngāhapu or Tūtai Kuri have also presented a document identifying their views and aspirations for the Tūtai Kuri awa in the future. The aspirations are based on the roles and obligations sought by the Māori Guardians, Papatūānuku, Tāne Mahuta and Tangaroa. So this will also feature as a contribution to the tank plan change here. The next steps, again, continuing to meet with the Mana Whenua group here. We have bi-monthly meetings to discuss where we're going, particularly at this time. We've got a meeting in the next 2 weeks looking at what are the outstanding tasks, as well as being able to consider going forward who else do we need to speak to, including iwi there. Are there any other questions from the paper?
Well, Shane, that was very well presented.
Thank you.
Okay, questions? Mike Moy?
Yes, it's a very comprehensive report. But I'm just wondering, have you made any considerations about putting this in a form so all the almost 100 odd hapu throughout Kahanga could have access to this?
So this is part of our discussion with the Mana Whenua group, and it's one of our standing tasks is how then do we disseminate, not so much even when we're up to the plan change, what is occurring now. So that is part of our ongoing discussion and expectations as well.
Tania?
Hey, kia ora, Joyce, and thank you for your report. Couple of questions. First one is, I'm not sure, I do recall Wayne Ormsby's draft iwi engagement plan being presented. I don't recall ever being told that it had been rejected, and then what was the next steps from there. So my take on an iwi engagement plan is to help safeguard this committee in our work to understand that the stakeholder group is being successful. I'm not saying it's not, it's just that is one area that we're hoping the plan will manage the risk of failing to engage effectively, and then the outputs failing to take account of Māori aspirations or catering for them. So did I miss that, or did we not know that? Because I don't recall knowing that.
I suppose in essence, no, you didn't miss that, and when we went back to the group, we hadn't seen that was going to occur as well. So I suppose in essence, we have been backtracking to see what were the issues and how can we look at resurrecting that document or some document. And so I suppose in essence what we've done is we've just tried to work very slowly and succinctly. We're sort of like we were in this marriage and then it broke, and now we've gone back to courting, but now I think we're back in the marriage there.
Can I just check, because what I didn't get from the report was a sense of what are the issues. So if the engagement with iwi has been a bit up and down. What are the issues that they are bringing? Because I understand some iwi reps have left Tank, some are still there. We have the obvious Ngāti Hori going off and doing a water conservation order. I mean, these are all signals to me that there might be some issues. And so I'm asking, what are the issues that you've identified, and what are we doing? What are we doing to mitigate that?
I'll have a go, and Joyce, and you can fill in the gaps of the things that I've forgotten. But look, so there's a lot of issues, and they start with relitigating the mandating of who's around the table. And that's a circular conversation because it's ancient history and can't readily be resolved. It just is what it is. And we did attempt, as Joyce Ann outlined, to supplement the representation to ensure that we were being as inclusive as we possibly could. There have been issues raised around the time given to tangata whenua to present and Te Ao Māori world view being articulated through the policy development, etc. And we've taken steps to provide more space for that. Have we got that right? I suspect we're not at the point, either as a council or as a country, frankly, to do justice to Mātauranga reporting, analysis, etc., to the extent that would be satisfactory to tangata whenua participating in this process. There has been a view expressed that the aspiration is for half the time of Tank to be on those issues. And we've made pragmatic calls as staff based on the science workload and on the basis of the timetable we're working on to get the Tank plan change completed and the budgets we're working on, that we give as much space as we can, but a 50-50 allocation of the Tank group's time to Mātauranga considerations and Te Ao Māori considerations as to the science, which we tend to view, albeit Western science driven, has got utility to tangata whenua as well. So that's an issue that's, I guess, not resolved, but it's still there. Another significant issue has been resourcing, and it's been the extent to which we have been prepared to fund a parallel line of analysis and advice independently of council staff to provide the tangata whenua reps with an independent view of what is being proposed in the Tank plan change. That's a bit of a moving feast at the moment. It is an ongoing discussion, and we, I would say, have not met the aspiration for a significant body of parallel work. It goes to a more fundamental conversation we've been having with the council in recent times in the context of our long-term plan, whether we are building capability within this organisation to service both tangata whenua and the Pākehā community, or whether or not we need to be investing in building capability outside to provide critique, if you like, of what it is that council staff advise groups such as the Tank group. So that's a bit on the table, and I'll be honest that we don't have budget provision. We are right at the margins of what we can cope with right now in terms of the advice going to the Tank group, and so any additional advice is over and above. We are looking at what we can do in the period of coming down the home straight of having review undertaken of the penultimate draft plan change by independent eyes and ears, and it's my expectation that the independent advisors of the Regional Planning Committee, Ricky and Billy at the back, will themselves be providing review and advice to the tangata whenua members. So there's a question about whether or not the tangata whenua representatives, mana whenua representatives on the Tank group consider that they need a form of independent advice which is independent of the advisors to the tangata whenua reps on the RPC. and again, for which there is no resource allocation at the moment. So I'm giving you a sense of a conversation that was not easily tractable. It didn't start and finish, and it is ongoing in some respects.
I want to just add to it, because I don't think James got the nuance of the challenge that we have, and that is that it's taken some time for the Pākehās around there who have different aspirations to really understand the way Māoris think and to understand how deep it goes, how deep water goes within their culture. And I'm on that journey as well. So all Pākehās are on that journey, and it is a journey. And it was epitomised by when Tangata Whenua left, and they came back the next meeting after a bit of politicking and between Nahiwi and myself. And Māori Apatu gave his wonderful speech, and it was compelling to most of us there. I don't know with the other Pākehās, but certainly I talked to Jeff about it. And Bruce Mackay, who are hardcore. One's a Dutchman, one's a Scotsman, and the hardcore industrialists in terms of water and the land. And Māori talked about how Maoris see water as streams and as taonga. And it was like a light switched on to everyone else. Oh, we don't. You do, or we didn't get that. And there was quite a few things in his speech that day that was a little light switched on. And it's just that understanding, and it's always going to be difficult. It's difficult enough to have forest and bird at one end and the cockies at the other end wanting to do something. But then you bring in all these cultural things, and we actually brought along the group that live at Tongoe, the artists. Now that was, some people really enjoyed that. Some people thought that it was a bit long and a bit dull, but I was amazed. People, he won't mind me using his name, Mike Glazebrook loved it. And he'd seen it from that light. So it's a journey of understanding each other's values, and from that, that taonga question is, instead of saying outstanding, we went to the iwi, James and I and Tom and Peter, and we talked to the Nio and the group that were in there, and we resolved that we wouldn't say outstanding, we would say taonga, and we would say, what does taonga mean to us as a community, rather than saying outstanding, which is a word that's been captured by some other people. And if you start saying outstanding, you all of a sudden mean a whole lot of other things. So it's much better for us to use our own definitions, and I think so. It's a merging of values and compromising of values, but understanding of values. So it's much deeper than just those practical things. They didn't leave because of practical things. They left because they thought the Pākehās completely didn't understand where they were coming from. It was like a different language, even though and it was true. So it is a journey for all of us. But it's been a pretty good journey, and I was really interested in Wairō. People there was the Tangata Whenua there at the meeting yesterday were saying they got it, and how it's evolving. But it's not an easy journey. I don't know.
I guess I just wanted to, and I appreciate that, because I think that's what stakeholder groups, forum groups offer, is the ability to exchange views and learn a bit more about each other's position. So I understand that. I suppose at the end of the day, though, whether engagement's good or bad, at the end of the day, we are going to be presented with a plan change back here. And the whole of this committee is going to be interested in their obligation to know how that plan change recognises and provides for that relationship of Māori with water, with taonga. So one of the reasons we asked for this report around engagement is that's just the means to the end. The end actually is, I think we need some comfort, because we know that there's good work going on, Tank, we don't dispute that. What we're concerned about is, on the Māori front, how are we going, translating those values? And we had some good, I remember the presentation made about the Ngāti Roro, how are we going in terms of the plan's progress and progressing the translation of those values into the plan. The concern is that we don't want to be presented with a plan, boom, and then find that there are deficiencies, or we have concerns, or we have people raising their concerns about the engagement not going well. We want to anticipate that, and I just would like to get some more comfort, and I don't know how you can provide it, James, other than, God forbid, another report, but just want to understand how is it tracking to be able to, when we present the plan change to this committee for Tank, that we're going to be largely comfortable that actually, you know what, we've done a good job of, despite all the hurdles, the lack of engagement, iwi management, engagement plans going kaput, whatever, we've actually arrived at a place where we can all be comfortable and hopefully proud of the work that's gone in there. That's what I'm signalling, because I'm not sure what the process looks like and how we're going to get it. I'm hoping we don't get it on a Saturday morning in Wellington and have to vote on it on Tuesday or Wednesday. So yeah, that's my question.
One of the things we've been undertaking to do is provide the RPC with periodic tank science updates, and I wonder whether it might be worth us having a particular one around tangata whenua values. Might be before Christmas, but sometime in the new year, so we can give you some detail around that. I'll ask Marianne to give a bit of a picture shortly, but we. In terms of the drafting of the plan, obviously incorporating values, etc., it's a slightly mechanical piece, but that's underway. And I'd just make the other observation that in terms of the values held across the community, one of the things which is very striking about Tank is the huge commonality between everybody about what everybody wants to achieve. So I personally feel pretty confident and optimistic that we'll meet those expectations, although it does partially go to the issue you raised this morning in the workshop around Mahinga Kai and even full immersion, swim mobility. There have at times been expectations expressed which will be, with the best will in the world, physically impossible or extraordinarily difficult to meet. And so there will be some expectation management as we come down the home straight in that regard. And simple practicalities like all of Hastings and Havelock North stormwater discharging into the Karamu system will present some practical difficulties with the ability for people to collect Mahinga Kai in traditional locations in the sort of mid-reaches of the Karamu, immediately downstream from pipes that are pouring out from every street in Hastings, just, as a dramatic example. We ain't going to get there, anytime soon. So, very.
Yeah, I'd just like to support what Tania was saying there about the Māori aspect to that. But if I can go back to her first time she spoke, she's talking about mandating and the Water Conservation Order with Kohu Pāriki. The reality is that at the last meeting, the Māori members didn't want to go against what Kohu Pāriki had put up. They didn't want to offend them. But in fact, there was only two ladies at Kohu Pāriki that put that up. They didn't have a mandate from the actual marae. So on one hand, we didn't want to offend one hapu, and yet before, 9 hapu, who I represent, were offended, and their motion was lost. I just wanted you to be aware of that, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Chair, just I think it's probably timely to remind all the members of the RPC that they have a standing invitation to attend Tank meetings, and the vast majority of the people around this table have never done that, and I think you should. If you are concerned about any aspect of Tank, whether it's the science, whether it's the values or anything else, all of you have an invitation to attend and see for yourselves. So if you need a level of comfort when a plan change comes to us, the solution to the comfort is in your own hands.
Can I just respond to that a little bit?
I'm not directed directly at you, so
No.
don't be offended.
I'm just saying, as a committee, we can't be at all hui that relates to the work of the HBRC. And we've had the invitation, and I'm thankful for the invitation, but I'm just saying, at the end of the day, the decision comes back here, and we need the information back here to be able to get comfortable. So understand the invitation.
Okay, is there any more on that item?
Chair, just before we do, can I just check whether Marianne Bugger, who's holding the pen on the tank plan change, has anything that you want to add in terms of the responding to the issues raised by Tangata Whenua?
Well, just to acknowledge that it is a significant challenge to make sure we do the job properly in this space. There are so many interests, and the whole issue of mandating and who speaks for whom remains a problem in terms of the ability of our Tangata Whenua reps around the table to be confident in their input without a clear understanding of the mandates and who speaks for whom. It makes it quite difficult to understand just how they can, what their role is around the table. But what's really important is that we support their contribution, because what we want to do is make sure that when the product lands in front of this committee, it has properly accounted for the Tangata Whenua and Mana Whenua interests in those water bodies. And we are trying very hard to make sure that we get concrete and real input from the Tangata Whenua members, and we have a separate group that we meet with, and hopefully over the next few months we'll be working quite hard with them to do real stuff, not just talk about how we do things, but to input into how we draft the plan. And I think this being a collaborative effort, we might end up with a plan that is quite innovative and different with the help of those Tangata Whenua groups. So it's things like taking the two reports on the Tutaukuri and the Ngaruroro and looking at what they say and making sure that whatever we've gotten to with the science component of it is reflected also and accounts for all of the other values and whatever attributes are important. So that's a bit of work ahead of us, and we do really need the Tangata Whenua group members to help us with that. So it needs for that real input by those members, plus also confidence for them that their input to the tank group is important and valued by the other iwi groups or Māori and Hapu groups that are interested in this process. So one of the challenges we've got is to extend understanding of the tank decisions more widely than just within the tank group. And Joyce Ann mentioned the think tank publication we've got that provides some of that, but we are aware that there's probably some work ahead of us to make sure that we are connecting in the right way with all the stakeholders that are going to be potentially interested in that final product.
Yeah, I guess first of all, I would say that from my perspective, the staff makes a very substantial effort to engage with the Maori representatives and more broadly on this, but I think this is going to get harder, not easier, as we get to the short strokes here, because if for no other reason than a key issue that I've heard expressed and sensed is the pace of all of this, and so I mean this thing is cranking along here now at about 150 k's an hour, and every meeting decisions are being made that are cumulative, that affect the next step, the next step, the next step. Are we going to model this or model that? Are we going to aim for this target or that target? And it happens very quickly. It happens on the basis of usually presentations and paperwork presented on the day. You show up at a meeting, here's the presentation. You want to go for 30% or 20%? That is not a style that this community in particular is comfortable with, and there are a lot of non-Maori on that committee who are tense about it, and then other key decisions get farmed out to some of the working groups that exist, like the economic working group. Bunch of key decisions, reports presented at the meeting last week. There was no Maori representative at that meeting, so you wouldn't even know what issues were raised, how they were dealt with, who had what kinds of objections to any of it, or whatever. But there's no opportunity, we're not gonna circle back and have a redo of the meeting. That group's gonna come in, it's gonna report on, here's what we decided at our meeting last week, and staff has been instructed to go off and pursue that and do the follow-up work that's required and get us ready for the next meeting, where we're gonna make some more decisions. And so, I don't know. I mean, we're on a, we're on a run against the clock here that is driving things at a tremendous pace, and you could just, my sense is that it's, I don't know what goes on behind the scenes when you have, the dedicated meetings, and how folks express themselves or what issues they raise, but in the large meeting, they're, group this size or bigger, sitting around the table, and it's a show of hands. 40%, is the target 40%, 30%, 20%, whatever? It's a very mechanistic process at that point. And it doesn't have a lot of breathing space in it. And there's no time for anybody to literally say, I'm not ready to make this decision. I need to go back and talk to, 9 Morai and see whether they think it should be 40% or 20%. It's make the decision on the moment, on the day. And that's going to be, I think, increasingly difficult to manage as we go forward here. I don't have an answer.
Well, this is conversations drifting around. It's useful, but we've got a couple of issues here. Can I just suggest to you, it seems to me that the key issue here is like a number of other negotiation meetings have involved, and people are very often reluctant to make micro decisions as they go through. But quite often you give people assurance that that's a good thing, because nothing's agreed until everything's agreed. And once people get that in their head, that nothing's agreed till everything, so you make these minor agreements, but at the end you have to agree to the lot, the package. And I think in terms of tank, this is my perception of it, yes, there'll be all those micro decisions, but at the end, when the final thing comes out, people will look at it and it will have a meaning to them. And at that point, you might find some readjustment in order to get a consensus. But people will have, as long as they have a view at the end, they're going to have a chance to review the lot. I think some of the nervousness will settle down. But I think that's a really important way in which you manage getting to an end. But this is well off topic. Now, just another thing, an observation, we don't have a quorum at the moment. Our fearless leader is outside doing the word with a megaphone. And so I'm going to carry on with the meeting, because we've only got things here for information, and if he comes back, we can then carry on down the agenda and pass all 3 things at the one time from a quorum. Tanya, you're going to be helpful here.
Yes. James, so you're suggesting that you'd be prepared to bring back a report early in the new year, reporting on iwi engagement and, I guess, Māori-related issues to tank. Is that right?
Yes, and I'd go one step further, and perhaps we suggest to the Mana Whenua group if they would like to come along and talk about how it's going for them. I think that would be helpful.
It would also be useful, I think, for the comfort factor to understand how tank is planning to present the tank proposal plan change to us, so we can see how that's looking in terms of time and information. Thank you.
I'm going to try very hard to be helpful.
Thank
Chair.
you.
I'm not entirely sure who I should direct this question to, but I know this particular
So
paper
the
is
chair's a good start.
through you then, Chair. I'm not too sure who I'm going to direct this who this question should be necessarily directed to. But I understand, I totally get that this paper is talking specifically about engagement around the tank discussions, but I'm intrigued to know what the feelings are as to whether that the engagement as a whole is improving over time, or whether it's static, or are we moving in the right direction in terms of how we're engaging with our partners?
Perhaps I'll take the opportunity to answer that, Councillor. You recall I had
You can answer the question, thank you.
I had a fleeting opportunity at one of the council LTP workshops to bring to you some proposals for increased funding for tangata whenua engagement. And part of that's really divided into two parts. One is around capacity building within and of council, including all members of committees of council, so internal if you like, and the other part of the funding is around more resource, and by that I mean it's principally human resource to assist our external engagement processes as well, because obviously the more Joyce Ann would like her to be able to do everything, but unfortunately she can't, and so it's really around putting that additional resource into improving our level of engagement right across the board with tangata whenua. My view is that actually since having Joyce Ann dedicated to doing that, albeit within the constraints of one person doing the job, that our ability to engage has certainly improved. But we see that there's potential to improve that even further with some more resource.
If I might put my tuppence worth in as well, that you are part of here today the improvement in council iwi relationships. This whole process started prior to the formation of the RPC. So we have another layer of accountability and reporting and input. You are part of it. It's around you.
Thank you for those words of wisdom, Chair.
Right, can we move on to the next item? We're done with that. We'll move that later. Update on Regional Planning Committee terms of reference review processes, including remuneration. Who have we got on for the song sheet for this? Liz, step up to the podium. This is yours.
Yeah, I'll do that. Thank you. So within this paper here, we were to provide an update on the RPC terms of reference, and clearly following a conversation held, tangata whenua have had their conversation with the independent advisors, the council laws have had their kōrero, and what stands out is the issue around remuneration. So we've been working through the remuneration process. This paper outlines from the RPC co-chairs, Councillor Rex Graham and Mr Toro Waka have nominated Mr David Channon to work on the remuneration process. Sorry, my... Carry on.
Do I come, Mr Chair? Do I come back into the mix
Always
now?
happy to have you come back in.
In the
I'm
mix.
not sure anyone else is. No, is it a no?
No, can't.
No, sorry, mate.
Another vote on that.
Righto. So I think we should acknowledge that at this point in time we have no quorum, but we are keeping discussion open. Okay?
So where was I? So within the terms of reference, the issue of remuneration appears to dominate the conversation and the progress forward. And as I mentioned, the co-chairs had nominated Mr David Channon, a consultant, to assist in formulating the remuneration rate and process for the tangata whenua members of the RPC. As you see there, there's a little bit of background there. I'd hoped to include the CV, but however, this was as good as I got. However, if you'd like to have the CV, I'm sure we can make that available. The next steps is both Liz and I have a teleconference with Mr Channon tomorrow to talk through those aspects of what the terms of reference had laid out in the remuneration, also against the Act, and how is he going to work through this. He has asked us also that he would like to interview members of the RPC membership, being tangata whenua and councillors there, so we will work through there and probably the chairs. So this is just more of an update where we're at with the remuneration process.
Okay, so I missed a part of that, but I do have any questions. We're on the item 8, terms of update on terms of reference. Any question? I got the lot. Okay.
I have a question
Tony?
though. Just earlier on we were asked if we had any minor items we wanted to add to the agenda, and related to terms of reference, I think at the previous meeting, which I wasn't at, we discussed it yesterday, Api had asked that the terms of reference be put back on the table here. Because it would be good to explain, I just had a conversation at lunchtime with James, but the expectation of tangata whenua was that we were pretty much near finished with the terms of reference, which is why we had gone to our solicitors to get the legal opinion. And when we talked about the water conservation order and how we can make decisions better, there was a discussion, and Rick, I think you led it around looking at values and principles, and we were going to come together and talk about that. Now, in terms of in relation to the terms of reference, the question is, when are we going to finalise that? Because the remuneration part of it is just something that gets done as a matter of course as part of the terms of reference. There's a remuneration clause that says what the process is, but that's not the focus of any changes and hasn't been. So I just wanted, for the benefit of everyone, can we just understand what is the process from here to get those terms of reference finalised, and is there outstanding issues that the councillors are dealing with that the tangata whenua are not aware of? Because we, as far as we were concerned, through the working group, there were no substantive issues. We were just trying to tidy up the drafting and get it finished.
So perhaps I'll start off answering the questions by addressing the one about remuneration. And there's two primary drivers for us, for the council, around that. One is about having a quantity to be able to put through to the long-term plan budget. So we need that really by the end of this calendar year to be able to budget. So it's quite a high priority for us to get that, and then to be able to obviously extrapolate out over 10 years as to what those that amount of money would need to be. So that's the first driver. And the second one was really, it was an issue that was raised by the councillors in a workshop discussion around the terms of reference. And so it's important for them to be able to understand what the quantity is that we're dealing with as well. Because you'll recall that it has to be unanimous support for the term, or agreement of the terms of reference. So there's probably one or two outstanding matters that the councillors want to have sought clarification on.
Look, during that council workshop, the most substantive questions that were raised were relating to RMA documents and what functions of the committee are necessary to give effect to the RPC Act, and where does the interests of the committee reside in relation to all of the things that sit around RMA planning documents, such as the science, the statutory implementation, compliance, consenting, the non-statutory implementation, which often involves things like our funding schemes and land management staff, etc., and even potentially goes to our flood control and asset management. So the Act is not entirely clear in this regard. It opens the door to the committee having a very wide view of the council's business, or perhaps a more narrow view. And as you'll be aware, there is a particular provision in the Act for the committee to have any other functions delegated to it by the council. This therefore poses questions about the role of the Māori Standing Committee relative to the RPC, and then it also goes to the council's overall program of engagement with tangata whenua and our capability and capacity to do that. So we are proposing as staff to have a holistic conversation with our councillors as part of the development of the long-term plan about all of that, and get clarification from the councillors as to how they would like the division of labour to work between these committees, and that will form a hopefully a coherent view to come back to tangata whenua representatives for further discussion.
Tanya, what do you want out of this? What do you? We have the regional planning committee now with terms of reference around the RMA, essentially. What do you want different from that?
Oh, we want it all. No. Something like that. I think the objective of the, and you know, we've got other tangata whenua reps around the room here, but the objective was to be co-governors in resource management with the council. That's what the overall objective was before we started negotiations, and I don't think anyone would be surprised by that. We wanted to see taonga managed in accordance with Māori priorities as much as anyone else's. So it's giving some, not just a voice, not just being heard, but being effective in that area. So that's the overall thing. I think the terms of reference review was really to align it with the Act. It's quite black and white, align it with the Act. And I think there were some fairly minor suggested amendments that went through the working group and have been, to my knowledge, not contentious. I think the water conservation order issue raised some questions for everybody around how do we function best as a group. So, you know, I welcomed the discussion around principles and values and maybe clarifying so everybody feels more comfortable about, well, what should this group be doing to be more effective? Because you can read it probably narrowly, or you can be, as James said at that time, looking at the spirit of it. So I think we just need to have a discussion about that. And the reality is, as we go along, there'll be things we haven't thought of that will come up. And I think if we've got good values and principles around what it means to be partners in this, hopefully that will guide us when we come to those times. And as I said before, it's not about what we do when we agree, it's what we do when we don't agree. So the terms of reference I thought was a fairly straightforward review. And I think the tangata whenua groups would welcome discussion if, you know, around those issues you've raised. But if the councillors need time to talk amongst yourselves about it, then so be it. We're not in a screaming hurry to get the terms of reference done, luckily, because it's taken forever so far. But, you know, it's a conversation. Yeah.
So we had a meeting in Ahui and Wairau yesterday, talking to. We started talking to a group that were organising themselves around the river, and then we're now talking to a group under the tai whenua, so it's a little bit different. I thought it was a really good meeting. A lot of passion about the Wairau River, of course. A lot of urgency to get on with the job, and disillusionment really that things just don't get better. They seem to get worse, and that was quite difficult for our staff to put over their part of the picture really. How that this is going to be a long journey, but I think eventually everybody will get. Everyone's in the same line. They all want to improve the river. And I think everyone will eventually realise that it is going to be a journey. It's taken 150 years to get the disastrous situation it is. And I bought, I was sitting in a little cafe and I bought the map of it's just a tourist map, but it's actually a really good one showing the Wairua River and its catchment and all the different little streams that and rivers that run into it. And as we saw on the earlier today, a huge part of the catchment is effectively moving. So it's been deforested and it's moving, and this is going to be a colossal and expensive job fixing. But anyway, we have now, we'll soon have a group based around the Taiwhenua that we can relate to, and it's their intention to bring farmers into that group, and we'll start the conversation. So it begins, really. Even though our resources are, at the moment, are very stretched. I don't think people will wait. Now, who else was on the agenda?
Mike, communication with Upper and Marae.
Mike, Kaipaki as well?
Yes, just before we go to that, you keep on talking 150 years, it's actually 177 since 1840.
The first set was only cut down a couple of trees, didn't do the chainsaw,
yeah, okay.
Mate. It's when the Maoris got the chainsaw, that's when the damage was.
My electric blanket is wearing out. Yes, at Kohupatiki the other night, we had a meeting and James and I and Rex attended. Now, one of the complaints from the tangata whenua is, so what are council actually doing? We haven't got a clue what you're doing. And from that came a conversation with James and I and Rex about how can we improve the communications to some almost 100 marae in Kahungunu ki Rangama Wahine. And so the concept, and it's just at its embryo stage at the moment, is that there's two Māori committees, but there's also the council meetings that I attend ex officio. We need to be reporting back to tangata whenua in a 1 or 2 page sort of bulletin type thing, and sending it out to every marae in Kahungunu. You know, doing that, say, 4 or 5 times a year, depending on how often and what the relevant news is. Because some people, some of the marae haven't got a clue when they talk about tanks. So, you know, are they German tanks? Are they, you know, what sort of tanks are they? Water tanks. And or just get tanked up. That's probably more relevant. So that was the concept that came out of a complaint from Kohupatiki, somebody that I went to school with, so he's quite an old chap. And so James immediately afterwards said to me and Rex in the car park, we need to improve this significantly.
Well, I'll just endorse that too. Communication to the marae, I think it's really going to be important going forward. Tania was the third one, but she's incorporated it. Okay, then that is the end of our meeting. Thank you very much for attending. Hope you had a good lunch.
Thank you, Chief.
Close the meeting. Sorry. Half asleep. Oh, who's going to do that? Mike, you'll have to do it.
Ka uri mātou ki a koe pā, te whakamutinga o tēnei pai. Ko te tūmana ko te ngākau, ka piki te ora ki a mātou. I tēnei wā, ko mātou whakaaro ki te tiamana, ia haere ki a tama ki makaurau, ki a whakaora ai tona tēnana, mō ngā wiki e ono, ka pā. Nō reira, ko te tūmana, ko te ngākau ka tai te rangi mairea me te ora ki a ia, i aua wā. Nō reira, e pā tiaki mai a mātou, hoki ki o mātou wā ka hena, ko ena mea ka pā tai ke runga tingo i ukarati a ka ke amene.